ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Versus Live presents Binge Battle. Hey gang, my name is Mark. I am the host of the show Versus on Rotten Tomatoes, where we get to do things like Annabelle versus Chucky or Stallone versus Schwarzenegger. But today, it's actually two of my dear friends are going to step into the arena and go against one another. My first competitor that's going to be debating all things The Office against her opponent is the one, the only, you know her from her daily show on Rotten Tomatoes, the Ketchup. Miss Naz Perez is in the building.
What's going on, guys? I'm so excited for this. I can't wait to read everyone's comments, and Hal, I honestly can't wait to go up against you. I mean, this is going to be a battle of the ages.
The trash talk has already started. I love it. She is, of course, going up against a Screen Junkies legend and Tournament of Nerds co-creator, and I can call him the cute one. He is Hal Rudnick.
Oh, Mark, come on. Takes one to know one, buddy. You know what? Naz, before we enter this virtual, we're friends. But now, still friends. Okay, let's have
I have one question before we begin, and that is for you, Mr. Rudnick. Is that a cat that is perched high on the shelf, or is that some sort of decorative owl? What are we looking at?
Yeah, is that an owl? Is that supposed to be some sort of like tactic, defense tactic?
I think it's Artemis Fowl. That's what I'm going to go with. So while Hal remains frozen, which is kind of a disadvantage going into a debate, you can get Hal's internet connection. But we are going to go into our first. This is our first topic, and again, everybody who is watching us live, please be active in the Facebook chat and comment with your pick and who you think Naz or Hal argued better for their various choices, and you're going to be the one that determines it at the end. So you see the scoreboard up there. I'm just refereeing the thing. I have no say in the matter. All I am doing is watching my best friends get bloody against one another. So Naz, I'm going to go to you first. And our first topic here today is, in terms of The American Office, the best character. There's so many different characters that you get in The Office, and you can take one of the leads, you could take like a Michael Scott, or you can take somebody who showed up randomly in a couple episodes but really left an impression on you. So Naz Perez, the floor is yours for a minute. Who is the best character in The Office?
All right, guys, here we go. If you are watching The Office and Dwight Schrute is not your favorite character, I'm sorry, you're watching the wrong show. The guy is the most hilarious and had the greatest character arc in the entire show. He starts off antisocial. He's a nerd.
You guys hear me?
Really hates Jim. Has a weird relationship with Pam. Yeah. He has a weird relationship with Pam. He takes all the shit from Michael Scott, and he's single. And in the finale, he finds love. He marries Angela. He makes Jim his best man or his best mensch. He tells Pam that she is his best friend, and he no longer takes crap from Michael. He's played by the brilliantly hilarious Rainn Wilson. The man is untamed. No one can be that serious and funny at the same time. His superiority complex is the greatest. He has an ambiguous moral compass. And to me, ladies and gentlemen, that makes incredible television. If you want to vote right, you got to go with Dwight.
Okay, just before I go to Hal, Naz, quick follow-up question. I have gotten in the past that I look a little bit like Rainn Wilson. Can you confirm or deny that that's true?
Okay, so if you literally closed one eye and maybe if I woke up without my contacts on, yes, 100%, you would be Rainn Wilson.
Then let's go over to Hal Rudnick here. So pretty good argument from Naz Perez, Hal. She is stumping for Dwight Schrute. Who is your best character in the history of The American Office?
You're really breaking up. I don't know. Are you hearing me?
We can certainly hear you, Hal. And if this is some sort of debate tactic to garner sympathy,
okay,
it's not going to work. Can you understand us? Because we can hear you pretty loud and pretty clear.
Sorry, everything was kind of freezing on my end here. This is a great question. There are a lot of iconic characters from The Office, but I have to go with a character who stands undefeated when it comes to funny lines, hitting the bullseye, hitting the target. My guy is Creed. Creed Bratton is the most iconic, funniest character, the best character in the history of the American Office. And I'll tell you, not only is he funny, mysterious, every time he appears, he improves the show, but he is one of the only original characters on the American Office. If you look at Naz's choice, Dwight Schrute, he is patterned basically after Gareth from the British Office. Michael Scott is patterned after David Brent from the British Office. Jim, Pam, they all have their versions in the British. Creed is an original. He might be one of the only originals that doesn't have his counterpart on the British Office. So for being solely original, for being the funniest hands down, every time he appears, he's funny. Dwight's welcome gets worn out a little bit sometimes. I got to go with my guy, Creed.
I love how both y'all really showed up for this argument because, full disclosure, my gateway into The Office, which I've still not seen all 9 seasons of, but my gateway into The Office was one of my friends told me about Creed Bratton, and she's like, "Wait, you've never heard of Creed?" And I was like, "No." She showed me this YouTube. Somebody compiled the best moments of Creed on YouTube, and it's 9 minutes long, and it is gut busting, fall down funny. But is Creed enough?
It is all bangers, wall-to-wall bangers. Here's a couple. The only difference between me and a homeless man is this job. I will do whatever it takes to survive, like I did when I was a homeless man.
It's so great.
Listen, can I rebuttal this for a sec?
You may.
If we were going, Hal, with the most original character, sure, you have an argument. But everyone watching right now, if you want to go with a potential murder, if you want to support a potential murderer, a creep, a sometimes pervert, someone who mistakes the smell of poop with soup, then sure, have at it. The guy is barely in episodes, and whenever he has lines, we don't even know what the heck he's saying half the time. But
you know what?
If you want to go
part of the argument,
outrun a black pepper snake, vote Dwight Schrute. Because we're voting for the best character, not most original, and the best, ladies and gentlemen, is Dwight.
You know what? I might have liked him a little bit better from the British Office when his name was Gareth. And you were making my argument for me. He is weird. He is unpredictable, this guy Creed. That's why we love him. He is a wild card. Every time he comes in, he improves the show with delicious lines. The best lines in the show, hands down, such as, "I've been involved in a number of cults, both as a leader and a follower. You have more fun as a follower, but you make more money as a leader." That is comedy.
Fitting true, and I love how sweaty we're getting just in round number 1. So I'm hearing
also, Naz, you called Creed
chat room
creepy.
Is actually saying that you're both wrong, and that Michael Scott is the best. So I'm hearing Michael Scott is the best, but Michael Scott, unfortunately, is not an option. So I need y'all in the chat room to vote. Do you think that it is Dwight, or do you think it's Creed? So I have a couple comments here. Figueroa Jr. says Michael Scott is a living legend, the best bot ever. But after Michael left, Dwight stole the show.
That's why I was just going to say, I don't want to, with everyone saying Michael, guys, I obviously don't disagree with you, but the guy bailed on the show and half of the world didn't even make it to the final seasons. So for that reason, I went with Dwight because he has the full character arc and we just see his evolution. And he's assistant regional manager. That's all I got to say.
Okay, Hal, we're getting some love for Creed too, though, because James Johnson says Creed by a distance. There's no real backstory on him, and he's this mysterious old guy we never really get to learn about. He doesn't do too much screen time, but when he does, he has amazing and funny lines.
He's a brilliant sniper. He shows up, kills, gets out of there, never overstays his welcome. Unlike Dwight Schrute, who overstayed his welcome so long that his spinoff got canned. You know? Too much Dwight. A little too much Dwight.
We all know
Can't have too much Creed.
If you're not picking Dwight, you're watching the wrong show.
Okay, well, we do have a ruling. We have the audience score is in. It has arrived. You both fought brilliantly in round number 1. Hal, I love Creed Bratton. The audience is saying Dwight Schrute is the winner in round number 1. So Naz gets the early 1-0 jump on the scoreboard. However, as we pivot to your second round, I think this is going to be one that's right in Hal's ballpark. Why? Because it is his word, the most iconic moments in Office history. So this is the most iconic thing that you think has ever happened in the 9 seasons of The American Office. And once again, if you're watching us live, please vote with what your most iconic moment is. And then between the two participants in today's binge battle, who do you think is right? Hal, you're going to have a minute first. What's the most iconic moment?
Yes. Well, one of the engines that drives The American Office is the will they, won't they, the relationship between Jim and Pam. And that is essentially the heart of the show. Boom, 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 boom. The beating heart of The American Office. And you want something that typifies, that is the very essence of that relationship. And that is the roof date that Jim and Pam have on season 2. That date is the stuff of legend. It really brings together all the emotion that has been just percolating up to that point. And when they're up there on the roof in lawn chairs, I mean, you melt. Your heart melts. You are along for the ride, and that's how they became America's sweethearts. You know, you could pick. There are countless funny moments, but this is the heart of the show, and it is the most iconic moment.
Okay, it's a good argument that Hal presents, Naz. Now, look, I'm not sure how you feel about this, but I know that watching The Office in general makes me a little uncomfortable because my whole life is set up to avoid ever being in an office. And it's kind of the same with dating, is that if I see somebody on a first date, I get nervous for them. I start breaking out in hives and sweating. So if there's a really gut-busting moment that you have from The Office that you think is most iconic, I might be inclined to side with you. What do you got?
I have so much. First of all, I have so much to say about Hal's choice, but I will save it for the rebuttal. So when I think iconic moment, right? I think Meryl Streep. When I think Meryl Streep, I think of Devil Wears Prada Day when Michael Scott impersonates Miranda Priestley. I'm just kidding. Okay, so picking an iconic moment on The Office was actually so hard, but I had to narrow it down to the pilot when Jim hands Dwight his stapler in yellow Jell-O. This moment symbolized the contentious relationship between these two characters that we were about to meet. At the end of the pilot, Jim also puts Michael's mug in Jell-O, but he does it in private because he sort of respects Michael. And I feel like this image of a stapler and Jell-O just stands the test of time and really just set up the three main characters so perfectly. If you opened a museum for The Office, next to Angela's cat, and a sign that says that's what she said, there would be a stapler in yellow Jell-O. This moment stands the test of time and is the image of The Office. Most iconic moment, mic drop.
Okay, well, Kevin with the chili has been voted on by Caleb Pace. So
Kevin with the chili is a solid one. See, here's the thing. I would say Kevin with the chili is absolutely funnier than the stapler in the Jell-O, but it's not most iconic. To break through all of the clutter, to break through all of the laughs and everything, you need something that is funny but also poignant. It touches us. It connects to our humanity. That's what iconic is. Iconic is something that's transcendent. It rises above. Yes, The Office is wall-to-wall funny. If you wanted to make a list of the best jokes and sight gags, you'd be here all day. Not Naz, your choice would be on somewhere in the middle of the list of best sight gags. But the most iconic moment, it's these two characters coming together in is a precursor to what their relationship will.
Well, listen, I'm sorry, Hal, because your moment wouldn't even be on the list. Listen, I'm a lover of love. No one is more of a hopeless romantic than I am. I'm going to go on the record and say something a little controversial right now, but Jim and Pam are kind of boring. Jim eats a ham and cheese sandwich every day. Pam draws, I don't know, tape dispensers and motel art. And if I want to take this argument even further, I do believe that Pam was engaged to Roy at the time of this roof moment. So sure, if you want to support emotional infidelity, go with Hal's moment. But I'm sorry, I just think Jell-O takes the Jell-O instead of the cake in this situation.
Oh,
good debate. This is really fun.
I mean, your moment is you're supporting thievery and destruction of property.
That's something Dwight would say, which is the best character ever because it was destruction of property, and that's why it was amazing.
Okay, we have a lot of fans siding with both of y'all. So Caleb Pace, Hal, I want to get your take on Caleb's comment because he says, come on, Hal, Jim asking Pam on their first date is more impactful. So why did you pick the second date?
Because the optics of this one, being on the roof, the way they connected, the way Pam got stood up here, and it led into her story about being stood up in back in high school, I believe. There's so much that made this date feel like the more iconic date.
Okay. Eileen Rivera says that she's with you, but Naz, Joel Mears is stumping for you, saying that Naz was definitely on her high school debate team. Is that true? And what would be your final word?
I was on my high school debate team, and my final word would be Pam was engaged. So sure, yeah, support someone that emotionally is cheating on someone else. I got to stand on the side of morality with this one. And I'm sorry, that is just not an iconic moment for me.
Well,
I would say, actually, can I make one last argument? How I think when Jim and Pam kissed at the end of the first Dundies is more iconic than that moment. Therefore, making my moment more iconic than yours.
Well, that was a drunken moment between Jim and Pam. But this date on the roof, this is
she basically was engaged. She was engaged.
Okay, Hal, you have the last word. Here we go.
There was no break in any kind of. There was no infidelity here, but this lovely date laid the emotional groundwork for what was basically the heart of the show. And if it wasn't iconic, how come you can find it on all sorts of mugs, t-shirts, posters? This is a huge moment that really, I mean, if you love love, you love this moment. This is where the kindling was born of Jim and Pam's relationship.
Okay, so this has been by far the closest of the, albeit two categories we've done thus far. Mark Hoffmeyer has a great quote that I agree with. He says that the Jell-O stapler is the best Jell-O bit in media since Jurassic Park, and I would agree with that. I'm looking at the audience score, and it is so very close, but it does seem like the audience is saying that the second date, while it was very romantic, was not iconic, and that stapler in the Jell-O was more of an iconic moment to get the office started. So unpredictably, Naz goes up 2-0 over the iconic Hal Rudnick.
Wow.
As Joe Pesci said in the shortest Oscar speech ever, it is my privilege. Thank you.
Is that all he said?
That's all he said. It was the shortest Oscar speech ever for Goodfellas.
Also, he was the shortest Oscar winner ever.
I will, yeah. Well, as a short person, that's why I relate.
Mark, feel free to fact check that.
Okay, while we fact check whether Joe Pesci
was Joe Pesci shorter than Anna Paquin?
How tall is Joe Pesci?
We're going to move on to our third of 4 categories. But keep in mind, if Hal makes a rousing comeback and he ties Naz 2-2, we do have a backup tiebreaker category, just so you all know. Maybe we get there, maybe we don't, but we're definitely approaching category number 3, and that is the best Jim and Dwight prank of all time. So we've kind of already mentioned one of the pranks and one of the many funny things that happens daily in the office, but now we're moving into the best all-time Jim Dwight prank. So, Naz, you're already up 2-0. It feels like you're playing with house money. What would be your greatest Jim Dwight prank?
I first want to inform everyone who so kindly joined us today that Joe Pesci is 5'4". Okay, so when it comes to the best Jim and Dwight prank, this was actually, for me, the hardest thing to pick because there are so many good ones. I tend to go with, I like the pranks more that mess with Dwight's head rather than inconvenience him, like Quad Desk, for example. But I had to go with identity theft when Jim dressed up as Dwight and when Dwight dressed up as Jim and they impersonated each other. This scene is unbeaten. Not only is it hilarious to see Dwight, like them dress up at each other, but it gave us 2 of the greatest lines from each character. The first one, I actually have a little prop with me here because I'm going to do it. The first one just being Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. And then Dwight to respond with the greatest thing ever by saying, identity theft is not a joke, Jim. It affects millions of families every year. And because of those 2 lines alone, it is unbeaten and hands down the greatest Dwight Jim prank in office history.
Okay, Hal, Naz really going for the knockout blow here with the glasses prop included. How do you combat with your best Jim Dwight prank?
Okay, so first off, how does how does a prank that was her most iconic moment not get chosen? I feel like she just contradicted herself. So if you want to take away her point and award it to me, I'll take it. Not expecting it. But you know, I feel like that her choice is a little on the nose. I would go for one that was a little bit of a long game, a little bit of a slow roll, where Jim got the best of Dwight. He reeled him in, and that was the vampire prank. When there was a bat loose, little by little, Jim dropped these delicious clues that made Dwight start to believe that Jim was a vampire. The fact, like, it is such a window into the psyche of Dwight, the fact that he can be convinced that a vampire is real. And Jim did it brilliantly, touching garlic bread and getting burned, the brightness of the crucifix in the office, little by little, it added so much. Not only that, I think you got to bring into the whole picture the fact that there was a bat flapping around the office, and that adds to the beauty of this prank. So I think all of the outside stimuli, the bat and the craziness going on, and then Dwight having to plot to potentially defend himself from a creature of the night. I mean, that is far and away. I feel like the prank that Naz described, it's more of like, oh, these guys were just kind of taking the piss out of each other, you know?
No way, bro.
Because they imitated each other.
Listen,
Rest of a prank.
I can appreciate the vampire slayer, my man Dwight. First of all, vampires are real. Dwight has killed a werewolf before after it turned into his neighbor's dog. And that is a great prank. I'm not even going to try and put it down. And Dwight also had one of the greatest lines during that prank as well, which is, if a human vampire were to show up in the United States, it would be in a Sylvania, like Pennsylvania. I died. Yes. But I am sorry, Hal, nothing in the world beats Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Okay, so we're not looking for the best line. We're looking for the best prank. Right, and that Sylvania line is brilliant. It's like you were making my case for me.
No, because seeing John Krasinski just get the cadence of Dwight and just totally embody that with something. It's unbeaten. We've never seen it before. And honestly, I'm sorry to rebuttal even further. Your prank didn't even have much of a payoff. Like Jim leaves the office, you know, and he has his hood up, and then that's it. This one, we get to see Dwight sort of, you know, get back at him by dressing up as him. So I felt like this was more of like a full-fledged, full thought-out prank, in other words.
Yeah, you know, that just seems like you know, they're playing dress up day. Mine was a full prank. Dwight had to go online, research vampires. He had to form an alliance with Creed, my guy, and ask him if he's willing to take down a creature of the night with him. There's so much happening. Also, in the same office, you get one of the funniest visuals of all time, which is Dwight capturing the bat in a garbage bag with Meredith inside of it as well. And he had to get that bat because he didn't want to turn into a vampire. And the vampire seed was planted by Jim.
Is lit on this one because they're giving me so many different iconic moments. Like Hassan said that the Dwight Snowball incident is one of the greatest ones.
Oh, so good. That one's really good too.
So Gabrielle Bruckner brings up an interesting point, saying that the vampire prank is basically it goes the whole episode, whereas Naz's Your Prank is just kind of the cold open. So maybe we give
that is not true. That is not true because Dwight dresses up as Jim at the very end of the episode. If you watch The Office, so nope, that is inaccurate.
You know what? I had already turned it off. I'd already turned it off by that point. I missed the payoff. Whereas mine, it's just delightfully woven through the whole thing.
There's no way Vampire Slayer is top prank. There's so many.
To make a ruling, and because the audience is chiming in, Siddharth gets the last word here in the audience, saying that Hal got this one because identity theft is a great prank, but the vampire one is an all-timer and underrated. And most of the audience does agree with Siddharth. So, ladies and gentlemen, Hal Rudnick is on the scoreboard, winning this win.
On the board.
And we got us a ball.
On the board. On the board.
Congrats, Hal. You can have that one. I still stand with Battlestar Galactica.
It was a great flex, Naz, with bringing the glasses in. But then I don't know if you noticed when Hal was making his final argument, he kind of showed the RoboCop shirt that he's wearing, and I think that won over a lot of the audience.
I'll show my RoboCop action figure.
Okay, gang, we're getting into what could be the final debate of the day, and that is the best episode in Office history. Like I said, 9 glorious seasons, or maybe 8 glorious seasons, and then another season, depending on how big of an Office fan you are. But there's so many great episodes to choose from, so I simply ask, what is the best episode of all time? Hal Rudnick, you're on the clock with your best episode.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to get serious for this one. You know, Mark, the best episode of all time. This was very difficult. You know, I was weighing a few. I thought about the Dundies. That was lit. But you know what? I wanted to go early Office because that was when it was most raw, and I thought the writing was the best. And I am going the injury episode. Michael Scott gets injured, and it sets off just a brilliant chain of events. And this is key Michael Scott. He's insensitive, tone deaf, and cloying for attention. And not only is his injury stepping into a George Foreman grill one of the greatest reasons that anyone could get injured, just that whole story about he plugs in the George Foreman grill to make bacon so he can wake up to the sizzling smell of sound and smell of sizzling bacon is bananas. That is so beautiful. But it's like instead of one entree, just Michael Scott's injury, you have 2 entrees because you have Dwight's concussion, which plays itself out brilliantly. Then the show, which also, when it's at its best, it shows a little bit of heart in Michael going in to be in the room for Dwight's CAT scan, and he puts his hand on Dwight's leg while he's in there. That's like kind of an awe kind of moment. Like, if that didn't make you like fog up a little bit, then like maybe you're not human. Maybe go to a mechanic because you're a robot, perhaps. One more thing. We all know that Michael Scott is an insensitive MFer and says a lot of things that might be deemed problematic. Okay? I said it. The Office can be really freaking problematic sometimes. This episode might have the best takedown of Michael Scott, because if you're going to say problematic crap, you need to get smacked down once in a while. And when Michael Scott is being so insensitive about differently abled people, about people with disabilities, he brings in the site manager who's in a wheelchair, who in the middle of Michael Scott trying to explain how bad his injury is, the site manager who's in the wheelchair shuts him down and leaves. Bam! Puts the smack down, and it is just brilliant because you have Michael Scott's insensitivity, but then in one of the rare moments, he gets his comeuppance. And it was just beautiful to watch. So for so many reasons, this is the funniest, the best episode.
Wow, Hal, that was a very
mic drop
and thorough argument, and it was amazing watching you look like a Lakers fan, but as soon as you put the mustache on, you looked like a Chicago Bears, the Bulls kind of guy immediately after that.
Thank you.
Now you look like me. Miles Anthony Hoover says, I like waking up to the smell of bacon. Sue me. So I think that's at least one vote for Hal. Naz, look, it was a long, winding road. There are a lot of different reasons why Hal is winning over the audience chat right now. How do you combat it? What's your best episode?
First of all, Hal, thank you for that Nicholas Sparks version of an answer. I hope everything that went after a minute gets disqualified because I'm actually following the rules here. But I am sorry, bro. I mean, I love the injury. My girl Mindy Kaling wrote it, but I got to go with the first episode that BJ Novak directed. Hands down, Scott's Tots. There is no competition. There's nothing more cringy and hilarious than Michael Scott promising a group of high school kids that he'd pay for their college tuition 10 years prior because he thought he'd be a millionaire by the time that he graduates. And when the bill comes, Stanley is just cracking up. Pam we see Pam right now just saying the inevitable that we're all thinking, Michael, this is a terrible, terrible thing. The longer you make this go on for, it's going to be so bad. And it is just an emotional ride the entire episode. We are just cringing at the edge of our couches, waiting for Michael to come clean. He shows up to the school. He's joined by the brilliant Ellie Kemper. The kids have a song and dance number that arguably is lit. Hey, Mr. Scott, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Make our dreams come true. Followed by a teacher thanking Michael Scott for making us believe that anything is possible, followed by a kid saying that he stayed out of the drug game just because Michael Scott promised this. And it is just, I have never been at the edge of my seat on the couch with my entire fist in my hand, just waiting for Michael Scott to come clean. And he finally does and tells them that, he's going to give them lithium batteries. And it is just, I think it's the emotional ride. It's the greatest payoff. It's classic Michael Scott. I mean, he's this guy with a big heart. He has unrealistic promises, but he's not in touch with reality. And I think if you compare it to Hal's example, we really get to see real Michael Scott here. If an alien landed on Earth and we had to explain to the alien what The Office is, all we would have to do is show them the episode of Scott's Tots because it is classic Office, hands down. Hey, Mr. Scott, what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Make our dreams come true.
That episode, it's very cringy, but I found his admission to everybody, at all the kids when he got up in front of the class, a little bit underwhelming. And it did not have the wall-to-wall bangers. As far as laughs go, the injury is just banger after banger. Scott's Tots, a fun plot device. that I don't think it quite lived up to. There's nothing funnier in that episode than Dwight crashing into the pole and then vomiting on his car. There is nothing funnier in that episode than Michael Scott talking about how he likes bacon in the morning, so he sets up a George Foreman grill next to his bed. There is no funnier injury in all time than stepping into a George Foreman grill and then getting it wrapped with bubble wrap. And then he's walking around with the bubble wrap on his foot, and like people are just like making fun of that all episode. It is wall-to-wall bangers. Yours is one plot device that is done okay. One plot device has done okay.
I couldn't disagree more when Michael Scott, under his breath, says, "I'm so sorry." It is the greatest payoff. I felt like I was on a ride at Disney World. And yes, I will say that him stepping on a George Foreman grill is brilliant. It is genius. No one is arguing that, but it is not, I'm sorry, it's just not better than Scott's Tots. Scott's Tots is an emotional ride, and it is a musical. It's a musical. The best thing
is when it...
Does he get a second rebuttal here?
One of the best things about...
I'm really enjoying the carnage here, because I've seen two great arguments.
One of the best things about The Office.
Go ahead, Hal.
Oh, one of the best things about The Office is when it gets edgy, is when it dances up to the line. And I'll just go back again and say, when Michael Scott has the unmitigated gall to compare his stepping on a George Foreman grill to this man in a wheelchair and say we are the same, and be so tone deaf, like we are like it's funny but cringy. It's what we love about The Office. But then in a brilliant and like important moment for The Office, Michael Scott gets smacked down, because I've seen there are a lot of problematic moments that go unchecked.
Sorry?
It's all, you get to close us out here, Naz. You get 30 seconds to win the argument.
I think all I'll say is, Hal, there's nothing funny about a guy making fun of a guy in a wheelchair. And when I travel around the world, I see people with shirts on around the globe in tour groups with shirts that say Scott's Tots on it, and no one is wearing a shirt that says the injury on it. And that's all I got to say.
Scott's Tots is an international sensation. And I've always kind of had a disdain for the George Foreman grill, because my roommates in college got one my junior year. And so for the entire year, I smelled nothing but that version of cooked meat. And like, I think I still kind of smell like that. No amount of cologne covers that up. So now I'm looking at the audience chat, and I think that this brings up a great point about The Office in general. And it's one of the reasons why I was a little hesitant to watch The Office, is because it is such a fine line between being hysterical and being cringy. And I think both of these episodes we're talking about walk that line. So we have a couple fans weighing in that I wanted to highlight. Aaron Fitzgerald says that Scott's Tots is the saddest episode of The Office. And Lucy literally says she's going to skip Scott's Tots. I've also seen some people say that Scott's Tots is the best. But as far as the audience goes, they are siding with Hal Rudnick. And we have ourselves a good old-fashioned tie ball game going into overtime.
Ooh.
This is,
wow.
I don't know. I'm questioning everyone in the audience now.
That tends to happen on the interwebs from time to time. Once again, everybody watching right now, I think we have well over 1,000 of y'all hanging out with us. Thanks for tuning in and spending part of your day with us. We know it's kind of rough times out there right now. We miss being around people in person, so we wanted to bring y'all a nice virtual debate right into your living room, and we're going to settle the score right now with a quick overtime round. Each competitor is going to get 1 minute to state their case, and then we're making a ruling. So as soon as y'all hear what you think you like the best, let us know. And what the best is going to have to be in the overtime round is the best Michael Scott quote of all time. 8 seasons of Michael Scott is spewing pure idiocy from his mouth. What is the best quote in Michael Scott history? Naz Perez, You are going to be kicking off with your minute at your ready.
Well, you got to go with That's What She Said. You know, we heard it in the pilot, and it was so perfectly said in the finale. Nothing made me shed a tear more. There was no more of a quotable line. Everyone in the world said That's What She Said if you were a fan of The Office. And I feel like I don't even have to have a great argument to this one, aside from the fact that it's just classic Michael.
Okay, Hal, that's. I mean, you talk about going international and seeing The Office reference other places. I'm pretty sure people reference The Office without even knowing it when they say That's What She Said. So what is your best Michael Scott quote?
So that might be the most well-known Michael Scott quote. But the best Michael Scott quote that is the funniest and that defines the man is, "I love inside jokes. I'd love to be a part of one someday." That is the best quote because it's funny, but it's so freaking sad. He's the clown that's not loved. He wants to be a part of it. He wants to be celebrated by everyone. He's so tone deaf and doesn't realize that he knows his humor does not connect. It is so self-aware and sad, yet hilarious at the same time, because it's like he know not what he say. That is the perfect Michael Scott quote for those reasons, because it has that heart and it has the funny.
Okay, I'm being told I can give each one of y'all a quick 30-second rebuttal. So Naz, have at it.
Hal, I actually love the line that you picked, and I think it was like really sincere the way you just delivered that argument. So I really appreciate it. But honestly, I feel like there are way better lines than that, genuinely. Like when Michael says, "I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious." Like there's a lot more genius things that have come out of Michael Scott's mouth that also embody who Michael is. But I just don't think anything will top That's What She
Said. Naz, I agree with you that there are so many funny lines to choose from, but I picked this because it's got the heart. It reveals, it pulls the mask off, and it's so sad and funny. It's got the duality, like the duality of man. You got your Jims, you got your Dwights, you got heart, and you got comedy and pathos in this line. Your line, yes, it's a line that's been around for decades. It's not an original line, and it was co-opted by Michael Scott, and it's become synonymous, okay? But the best quote that shows the man, that shows the sad clown, I love inside jokes. I hope to be a part of one someday. Oh,
that's all that we can ever hope for in the comedy business, Al. I'm looking at the comments. Again, it seems like it's split right down the middle. I'm seeing a lot of great ones that I wanted to highlight. Vishal says, "That's What She Said" is iconic. And Debbie Day agrees, says, "That's What She Said" is the best one. Then Caleb says Hal wins because it's the best suited to Michael Scott quote of all time. So if now I'm in the unfortunate position, I thought my job was easy today, right? Just get to the referee and like watch y'all. Now I have to actually deliver the news to one of y'all that you lost. So I'm going to say That's What She Said is not going to be I win today, because Hal Rudnick has completed the greatest comeback in Binge battle history, and that is coming back from a 2-0 deficit to win 3-2. Hal, the audience has made you the winner today. I hope your acceptance speech is longer than Joe Pesci's.
You know what, Naz, you took me to you know The Office, and I respect you. I doff my chapeau to you. I also doff my mustache to you. Naz, you're a truly knowledgeable, great fan of The Office, but I won, y'all! now. The best thing that happened in quarantine since my wife making the delicious meal the other day. Oh my God! I want to thank Jim Halpert. I want to thank Pam. I want to thank Creed and everybody involved. But Mark and everybody at Rotten Tomatoes, thanks for having me. This is super fun. And thank you to the audience. I hope everybody's staying safe out there and practicing social distancing. And let's get through this, y'all.
Wow, Naz, I don't know if you saw that, but that was like, we always criticize actors and actresses when they win a big award and they get political, but that's exactly what Hal just did. Hal thanked everybody, and then he made a political statement about making sure you stay safe. So maybe those people in their ivory towers don't have it so easy. Naz, I'm sure that you would also like to have a few things to say to the audience and everybody watching.
Yeah, I just want to thank Hal. I think, Hal, you had great points. You absolutely deserve to win. This was so much fun, guys. I'm just happy to be a part of this and talk about The Office. And that's what she said.
Okay, now that we're all friends again, before we say goodnight, I did want to let everybody out there know that, look, we're just like y'all because we're just kind of sitting at home and we're working when we can. We're trying to pay the bills on time as best we are suited to, but we're also watching a lot of stuff. So I wanted to get Hal and Naz's take on what you're binging right now, what your binge recommendation to the audience is. I'm only 2 episodes deep of Tiger King, so I'm going to finish that, and then I'm 2 episodes deep of Ozark. I'm really not good at binging, so I'm going to eventually finish that season 3. Naz, what is the show that you need to tell all the folks out there to watch and then come tell you about?
All right, so I got 2 for you guys. I got an oldie but goodie, which is The Sopranos. And if you don't have HBO Go or HBO Now, HBO just released 500 hours of free programming, The Sopranos being one of them. And I got to say, God, it's just so good no matter how many times you watch it. And I feel like I'm turning into a soprano. Like my mom calls me and tells me about her qualms of the day. And I turn into Polly Walnut and I'm like, Ma, I got enough problems, all right? I can't talk to you right now. But a new one that I just finished binging is called Unorthodox on Netflix. It's a limited series. There's only 4 episodes. It's based on a best-selling memoir of this woman who grew up in the ultra-Hasidic community in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. She flees, leaves her husband and her entire life to go to Berlin, Germany. It is extraordinary. The cast is diverse. The acting is incredible. It is so well done. Netflix even made an episode called The Making of Unorthodox, and it's a book. So we have all the time in the world. I highly, highly recommend watching Unorthodox. Female-led show, which you guys know that I love, and it's a great story on feminism and freedom.
All right, so Unorthodox and The Sopranos. So next time Naz gets to do the Ketchup from the studio, she'll probably be wearing a warm-up tracksuit. Hal, it is now your turn. What are your binge picks for the audience out there? Did he freeze on me? Hal, did you get frozen on me?
His binge pick is frozen.
Naz on those choices. Sopranos, I watched that in like it was over a Christmas break.
This is so Hal. He gets the win, and then he just decides he's going to have technical issues and party late into the night. I mean, Hal, we still need you to be a professional to close out the show. Just because you won doesn't mean you're better than us.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now. You may now give your binge pick. Ladies and gentlemen, Hal Rudnick in a crazy reversal. Naz Perez gets the win because her internet connection.
Yes! Hello.
As we say good night here, I am going to speak for Hal and say everybody stay glued to your TV, particularly ESPN April 19th, because the 10-part Chicago Bulls series is finally premiering. It's earlier than it was originally slated for June. That's super exciting. And then I also want to give a shout out to everybody over at Schitt's Creek. They just ended their epic 6-season run. It was such a beautiful final episode, and they had a great behind-the-scenes documentary making that season that they also aired. So if you can find it either streaming or on demand somewhere, definitely check out all of Schitt's Creek. Hal, it appears that you're back with us, so I'm going to retroactively award you the win again and then let you close out the show with your binge pick.
Whew. Thank you, Mark. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I really like Naz's picks, but I'm 2 shows. One, I'm 3 episodes in. I get caught up to it. Devs. Nick Offerman plays an amazing character who's like of Mark Zuckerberg and Jack from Twitter and like and and Elon Musk. He's like this prototypical tech genius who is creating this very mysterious technology, and there's murder, there's intrigue. It's really peak. You like Ex Machina? It really scratches that itch. Technology, and Nick Offerman and the cast is great. And then I'm going to recommend a comedy. This came out last year, I believe. It's a sketch show on Netflix called I Think You Should Leave. And this comedian, Tim Robinson, is freaking brilliant. And it's so uncomfortable and so awkward, yet hilarious. Even if you haven't seen it, you might have seen some of the memes that have been inspired by this show. So I Think You Should Leave on Netflix. It's one of the funniest things I've seen in the past few years.
I have my homework cut out for the week now. And for everybody out there watching, you can just go to RottenTomatoes.com and check out the Binge Central hub. It gives you so many different great breakdowns. We have such a great editorial staff at Rotten Tomatoes that have all these different lists. So you can go check out like what the 150 best comedies to watch or the 100 best sports movies. Or they have so many cool random lists that you didn't even think of making a list to. They did it for you. So go check out Binge Central over RottenTomatoes.com right now. One more time, I want to give a huge shout out, thank you to both Hal Rudnick and Naz Perez. Follow them on all of their various social media platforms because they're great humans doing great work for not only themselves and their own households, but the community out there. I know from firsthand experience. And I want to thank our tech team for working so hard day and night to get this show to you all. So a big round of applause to everybody behind the scenes and everybody out there watching. For all the audience and everybody here at Rotten Tomatoes, thank you for spending a little bit of your quarantine with us. Hopefully we'll be back soon doing more fun shows such as this. And until then, my name is Mark Ellis, and this has been Versus Live Binge Battle.